Whenever the iPad Pro gets brought up in review videos, the general consensus is that the machine is too powerful for the average student or the average consumer. The Pro model is seen as a luxury buy, or if you're a creative professional who seriously needs the power of a Pro. You know if you're that type of person. But what if you're someone who's not in school or a creative professional and you just want the best iPad Apple has to offer? How can you use the iPad Pro to not only be a great device you watch content on, but also something that you can use on a regular basis? That is a question that I've been trying to figure out the answer for over the last few years. Now, while I do make YouTube videos, this is only something I do on the side, and frankly, a lot of my creative work that I do end up doing is done on my MacBook Pro. So what exactly do I use my iPad Pro for? Well, it's a great content consumption device, a great note-taking device, and an idea generator. Before we get into the details on what I use my iPad for, I think it's worth mentioning the accessories here. I think these two accessories make a huge difference in the enjoyment of the iPad Pro. I'm talking, of course, about the Apple Pencil and a keyboard. Now, I happen to use the Apple Magic Keyboard, but you don't have to use this keyboard. There are plenty of great third-party options out there. Now, I recommend these two accessories because they simply help elevate the iPad experience. For the Apple Pencil, it's something that I use every single day because I love taking book notes on the iPad Pro. And since I have a smaller 11-inch iPad, the keyboard is actually really nice because I can whip out the machine anywhere I'm at and start taking notes or jotting down ideas. Okay, with the accessories out of the way, now it's time to fully go into detail how I use my iPad Pro. First, as a note-taking device. I've said it before and I will continue saying it, I simply love using the iPad as a note-taker for whenever I read books. I read a ton of books throughout the year, and every time I read my books, I love taking those notes on my iPad Pro. I've never been a fan of actually typing out my notes. I've always wanted to write them, and I remember back in college, I read a report or a research study that said that you actually remember or retain a lot of the information when you actually physically write out your notes compared to typing them. So because of that, I've always just been a big fan of writing them out. But because I write them all on my iPad, I can now have them all in one digital keepsake. And it's so much more convenient to have it all digitally because I remember in the past I would have to go looking around for an old notebook that I just wouldn't know where it was. So having them all in one place is a godsend. And if you're wondering, I do use Notability for my note-taking app of choice. Also, having the Apple Pencil allows me to draw and Procreate. I'm not a drawer by any means, but it's something nice to have if I ever feel creative. I also use the app Freeform, which is a stock app on all iPads, and this is something really nice to have because I use it as a mood board, web charts, or simply a way to write down all my ideas on a giant canvas. And I would highly recommend checking it out because, like I said, it's a free app and it's stock on all iPads. Second, as an idea generator. Now, one of the things that I love about the 11-inch iPad Pro is how small it is compared to the 16-inch MacBook Pro that I have. And now this is a huge plus because the portability aspect of it means that I can whip this machine out anywhere I'm at. If I'm working out of a tiny coffee shop, a library, or anything you can think of where your space is limited, it's nice to have a smaller machine to work off of because the 16-inch MacBook Pro, while it is great and powerful, takes up so much room in those areas. There's also some quick functions you can use with the iPad, such as when it's locked, you can double tap the screen using the Apple Pencil and a small Apple Notes tab will open up and you can use it to jot down any ideas that are in your head. It's the little things like that that make the iPad a really enjoyable machine to use. Third, as a content consumption device. I mean, it's no shocker that the iPad is simply just an enjoyable machine to use when you're consuming content. And because of its 11-inch screen and its portability aspect of it, I find it more enjoyable to watch videos on this than I do on my MacBook or on my iPhone. I use it all the time for when I'm watching those early morning Premier League games in my bed. And another great thing that I found useful is when I'm cooking, I can actually bring up the entire recipe list on the iPad. And because the screen is bigger than an iPhone, it means I can fit more of the ingredients and more of the steps on a screen. And it just stops myself from having to scroll all the time with my iPhone. That is how I make full use of my iPad Pro. Like I said before, there are plenty of other things that I could be doing to maximize everything that I could do with this machine, but I simply find with my workflow, this is what works well for me and makes it enjoyable to use. However, I do want to leave with this one point, is that I do agree with a lot of the other YouTube reviewers out there that the iPad Pro simply isn't a great laptop replacement. I think you could really benefit by having a laptop, but one of the great things is that when you use your iPad Pro as a secondary machine and you treat it that way, I find it to be more enjoyable and more useful than if it was just a full-on single machine for all your creative work. I hope you found this video helpful. With love and respect, Yash.